Hello, friends, and welcome back to r/ProRevenge. The guy who left his car at the parking space of our OP found a nice gift in the morning. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Steal my space? Have fun in the morning. So it's supposed to be minus 40 tonight. Because it's so cold, some a-hole decided to park their giant SUV in our assigned space so they can plug it in. Now my wife can't plug her car in, which means I'm probably going to have to drive her in the morning. We called the rental people, but they're not going to do anything about it, definitely not by morning. So the first thing we did was shut off the breaker to our space. I'm not paying to heat this a-hole's engine block. Then I took a spray bottle of water and hosed down their windows and door handles in 45-minute intervals, so they're going to be scraping some ice in the morning while they warm up their ice-cold engine. I hope they get up early. And our second story. How my manager losing his temper at me nearly cost him a sale. This happened a few years ago. I was an admin at a car dealership, and part of my job was to submit deals to the bank when we sold a car. This was to obtain financing, so the information entered was crucial. My sales manager ran hot and cold on an hour-by-hour basis and would often lose his mind over the stupidest things when he was under pressure. We often butted heads because of this. One day he flies over to my desk in a clear tizzy. "Run this now," he says as he slaps a file onto my desk. I open the file to review the deal. It's a bigger deal on one of the high-end cars, so I can appreciate that he wants this done quickly. I'm about to enter everything when I notice the down payment says $100. This is highly atypical for most deals, let alone one of this size, so I call him back immediately to ask for confirmation. I start to tell him I want to double-check something, but he cuts me off. "The information's right there. Use your eyes and effing enter it," he hisses before storming away. Now, I was used to his tantrums, but this was beyond the pale. I had the option of checking with the finance manager, but I decided that the sales manager had gone too far, so I followed his instructions to the letter. Less than 5 minutes pass, and we get word back that there are 0 approvals. No bank will touch this deal. The sales manager zooms back over, nearly purple with rage. "What the F did you do? That was supposed to be a $10,000 down payment." I smile and open the file to point at his handwriting that clearly says $100. I entered the information just like you asked. He's nearly choking, he's so angry, but what can he say? I tried to prevent the issue, and he was too much of a jerk to listen to the admin peon. He stalks off without another word. A few minutes later, the finance manager comes to see me. "I know why you did it, but please check with me next time." I shrug and say, "No promises. He can behave or he can face the consequences." In the end, we were able to secure financing for the deal. Funny how having the right info makes that happen. And Mr. Sales Manager learned a valuable lesson to listen before flying off the handle. And our last story. Shady business owners don't like it when you call regulators. Used to work in private security. Rent-a-cop/bacon bits jokes go here. When I first hired on, thought the company was fairly upstanding, yada yada, because the owner and I would bullcrap a little about our respective military careers. A guy who used to be in pararescue can't be that bad, right? First year was relatively normal security work, mostly fixed post, think Walmart door greeter but with a badge and handcuffs, and general, "I'll tackle you if you steal things, but otherwise I'm just a breathing security camera stuff." About a year in, I finish all my qualifications for armed work and get assigned to patrol. Patrol is basically private police. Companies would hire us to make rounds and respond to things at their locations, mostly apartment complexes and mostly noise complaints or occasionally towing off cars and such, but occasionally managing residents during a fire or breaking up disturbances. The company handled pay in a kinda wonky manner. Twice a month, on the 1st and 15th, we got paid for 2 weeks' worth of work, and every now and again, it seemed like whenever they felt like it was getting too far behind, we get an extra paycheck slipped in with our normal one. I got my first paycheck 5 weeks after starting, and there was a point where we were receiving December checks in February. Pay rates were determined by the type of work. Entry-level stuff made $7 an hour, more advanced made $8, and armed paid $10. Raises were available on top of that. For the record, I worked there 3 years and never got a raise, and the 2 people I know who got raises each got 25 cents an hour after 4 years. Also, all this was during $5.15 minimum wage. Patrol required armed officers but paid in advance, as it was also guaranteed 42 hours a week on a set schedule, 3 12-hour days, a 6-hour day, and 3 days off. So most of us didn't really complain. Moving up to patrol taught me a lot about the company that I didn't know. I figured the owner was a little sexist, but the depths of his sexism caught me a little off guard. And then there's the racism. I'm Latino, but I look white because I avoid the sun like the plague and have got bone structure from my white mother's side. Though my surname is a dead giveaway, there's a state in Mexico to which I'm apparently related. Must be a distant relative on my abuelita side. I was apparently good enough to be on patrol, but not promotable for some reason, even though I worked my effing butt off, even though supervisors routinely recommended me for promotion. The female officer who was assigned the easiest shift because it's all she can handle, and this way it's obvious I'm trying to work with women. Those are as close to verbatim quotes as I can recall. Or the time he held a contest between patrols for excellence and canceled it after 2 months. 2 months in which it happened that the female officer won once and took second once, and the Mexican dude won once and took second once. Between those 2 months, I made an extra $30 in gas cards. Woo! I also learned about how they screwed over clients. This company pays for 12 hours of continuous patrol between their 3 properties, but the owners want more money, so that route also covers 5 apartment complexes and handles cash drops for a couple of stores. Another business pays us $1 million a year for 5.5 hours per weeknight and 7.5 hours per weekend night, approximately $450 per hour, and that route jumps off property like clockwork every night to take care of 3 to 5 other properties at specified times, leaving that client without their only security at key times. This group of apartment complexes pays for 1 hour on property per night. They might get half of that if the night's slow because of the workload. And then he decided to F over his staff. More. Patrol was offered a salary that was 10% less than the minimum legal salary, with the strong implication that if we wanted any hours at all, we'd take it. Once we were all salaried or gone, things shifted over to 48-hour weeks. I did the math at one point and realized that if I watched a movie at the theater and ate twice at fast food on every day off, it was still cheaper for me not to work than to work because of gas and food while working, considering I walked about 12 to 15 miles every night as part of the patrols, which requires a fairly brisk pace, which requires calories galore. But if you were scheduled off and they called you in, you either accepted the extra hours or you got chewed out. And if you made a habit of saying no, you get written up for anything they could think of. Then one of my colleagues got into an accident at work. He was hospitalized for like 9 days, ended up making a full recovery, but he was in the company car, so according to the company, he was responsible for paying the $2,500 insurance deductible. I'd had it at that point. I borrowed some money from my mother to talk to a labor attorney. Best $200 I ever spent. Attorney gave me 3 pieces of advice. If there's a problem with the way we're being paid, talk to the labor board. My colleague was not on the hook for the car. That's why the company had insurance. It wasn't our fault that he was too cheap to spring for a lower deductible. Document everything, but keep my name out of anything. I passed word to the injured colleague about the insurance thing, and he lawyered up pretty much immediately. His family had enough money that he didn't have to work. I also made a not-so-anonymous phone call to the state labor board, asking that they not reveal it was me. 3 weeks later, I'm in the office handling post-shift paperwork when the rep comes in. I GTFO'd as fast as I possibly could. Didn't want to be there for that whole thing. Fast forward about 6 months, and the labor board has finished their investigation. Turns out that the salary was in fact too low to be legally allowable, but also that our positions were not legally eligible for salary anyhow. So all of those 48, 60, 72-plus hour weeks were full of overtime, unpaid overtime on which we were owed interest. Also, requiring patrol to be armed but not paying them armed rates wasn't legal. Based on the employment contract, any work for which we required that license was required, we'd be paid the rate associated with that license. Also, the twice a month you're paid for 2 weeks of work thing isn't legal either, so we got several oversized paychecks covering back pay, plus others covering interest, which had to be noted in the check stub as interest on back pay. The labor board rep couldn't do anything about the ways they were screwing over their customers, but she did have someone she could call, someone she should call, someone she did call. A couple weeks later, that investigation started. I don't know all the details. I left during that time to start some higher education, but a few months later, they sold the company to someone else. And I heard through the grapevine that part of the reason was they lost several contracts, and all that back pay pretty much wiped out their savings. I got something like $8,000 in back pay, and there were another dozen patrol officers in that time frame, so I figure around $100,000 total went out just to patrol, and apparently there were some discrepancies in how they managed fixed post staff as well. And they had to move to a smaller house. The rumors also said that after the sale, the new owners renegotiated all the contracts, including getting a few that the previous owners had lost to being shady. And somehow they're still profitable, even after giving raises and whatnot. It's almost like the previous owners had just been trying to milk everyone for as much as they could get. Oh, and an aside, I got to know the manager of that business that paid us $1 million a year pretty well afterwards. She neither confirmed nor denied that $1 million figure, so take it with a grain of salt. But if it's true, she manages the most affluent shopping center in town, which includes a restaurant where prices aren't on the menu because if you have to ask, you can't afford it. That one contract would cover all the expenses of all patrol. The owners always seemed really intent on keeping her happy and made sure that we knew not to tell her we left the area for any reason except end of shift. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.